All right, this is our South Carolina Association of Realtors Form 220. It is the exclusive right to sell agreement, listing agreement. So the first part of this agreement is the explanation of who this agreement is with. It'll be between the owner, the seller of a property, and the broker. The broker is a real estate company that your real estate agent will work for. And so those two parties will be referred to as the owner and the broker. It describes the time period from which this agreement will be in place, as well as a description of the property. This is a legal description of the lot, tax map, the county, and then of course the full address. If there is an additional property, a part of this property, it'll be listed here. The first section is about agency. Agency describes who works for who, and there would be a form that the owner would have been provided before, the South Carolina Disclosure of Real Estate Brokerage Relationships form, and there's a place for the owner to initial confirming that they've received that. The second part of this section goes into whether there'll be dual agency or designated dual agency, and just gives the owner an opportunity to initial whether or not they would consider that as a transaction moves forward. Section 2 discusses the terms of the agreement. This is where the purchase or the listing price of the property would be listed, as well as what the total commission percentage would be agreed upon to be paid to the broker. The second part of letter item A in section 2 describes the expiration or termination of this agreement and what happens if uh, someone who viewed the property during that time came back to purchase it. This would mean that the owner would actually pay the commission to the broker if it falls within that 90-day protection period, unless a listing agreement has been signed by another firm with another firm. Section B describes what a sale actually is and how it's defined. It's a legal transfer in exchange for money or exchange for another property. So that's the definition for what the sale would be. Section 3. This describes whether or not the owner would be offering compensation to other brokerages, and if so, how much. So there's a place for the owner to initial here if they are willing to offer compensation for other brokerages, and then a place here if the owner does not agree to offer compensation. If there is compensation being offered, this is where the amount will be listed, whether it's a percentage or actual dollar amount. Section 4 gives the owner the option to decide whether or not they would allow advertisement of seller concessions, if that's something they're willing to negotiate or not. Section 5 discusses earnest money and that the release of earnest money, how that would be handled, basically indicating that the earnest money would not be released from the escrow agent unless there was an agreement made between both parties. Section 5 details that the owner grants the broker the exclusive right to place a for sale sign or pending or signage on the property, describing the status of the sale. Section 7. This describes what the broker's duties are. It describes what the broker is supposed to be doing and how the broker is supposed to be handling the transaction. The goal is to sell the property, of course, to secure a contract specifically for sale, and then also keep information confidential during the course of the transaction and keep the owner informed. This is Section 8, the broker liability limitation. It describes what limitations are in place regarding if a dispute should arise between owner and broker. And it also describes that um, the owner will hold harmless the broker from acts by different parties that the broker may have recommended, such as inspectors, other professionals, and service contractors. This is Section 9. and it describes the owner's duties. There are many duties here. Some of those duties will include informing the broker of any inquiries from anyone else who inquired about the property. It includes permitting the broker to offer the property for sale without regard to age, sex, race, creed, color, religion, national origin, handicap, or familial status. It gives the owner the duty to permit the broker to pay a certain amount of expenses. If so, that amount would be listed here. It gives the owner other directives to allow the broker to take photos. It has the owner being able to convey marketable title, and for the owner's attorneys to furnish the broker with copies of final settlement statement, and to not deal directly with the buyers of the property during this agency period. It also gives the owner the duty to authorize the broker to divulge the existence of other offers and to furnish the broker with instructions and about confidential information if it were to terminate or the agreement was to complete. Section 10 is about property information in the seller's property. This is a disclosure statement that will be filled out, and it is a part of the agreement. It also indicates that uh, the broker can't withhold any material facts, and also that the seller will not be um, will be making sure to disclose any defects, whether hidden or obvious, or any additional information about the property. And it also gives the owner the ability to disclose any information that they may have known and to indemnify the broker about information that the seller may have withheld. Section 11 is disclosure. It gives the broker authorization to disclose information about the property to its agent and to prospective buyers. It also gives authorization for the broker to learn if there's anyone who has a lien against the property, including the mortgage lien, and to disclose complete information for the closing attorney as well. Section 12 is about taxes. It just confirms that the owner would be complying with any provisions regarding the taxes and that the taxes would be negotiated between the owner and any prospective buyer if necessary. Section 13 may or may not be effective, but it just informs that if the property is affected by Coastal Tidelands and Wetlands Act, that there is a separate agreement that would be reviewed and a part of this agreement as well. Section 14, there are two options here. The first option is whether the property will be allowed to be entered into the multiple listing service. If allowed, there are two secondary options that need to be selected. The first is whether or not the seller allows for the broker to enter the property into the IDX program, which is online marketing. And the second option that the owner would have to select is whether or not the broker would be able to make the offer of compensation to other brokers or buyers representatives. Option 2, if the seller does not consent for the property to be placed in the multiple listing service, would be listed here. Section 15, this describes whether or not the owner would agree for a lockbox to be installed on the property. Section 16, this explains that the owner understands that it's the broker's responsibility to present all offers, and that responsibility to present all offers terminates once this property closes or the expiration of this agreement, whichever occurs first. Section 17 indicates that the broker will not continue to market the property after an offer has been accepted. Section 18, this indicates that the broker's compensation is purely a matter of negotiation between the broker and the owner. It is not set by law, there's no fixed price, and Section 18 just indicates that this commission is negotiable. Section 19, the owner agrees to maintain the property during the duration of the agreement, making certain that heating and air conditioning, electrical and plumbing systems, any built-in equipment or appliances are all in operating condition um, through the day of closing or possession, whichever occurs first. Section 20, this indicates that once a buyer is found, that there will be a written sales agreement that would outline the terms of that sale. Section 21, if the property was built before 1978, we would need to have that agreement that discloses the status and knowledge of any lead-based paint. Section 22, this details that if there is a dispute or a claim that comes about, that there would be mediation that takes place. And the mediation clause survives for 120 days after closing. Section 23 is our fair housing section, where the owner and the broker both agree that this property will be offered without regard to race, color, religion, sex, handicap, or familial status, or national origin. Section 24 is about fax. We don't usually use fax too often, but it also details other secure electronic means, which means that we can use the internet for signatures and initials, and it is the same thing as if it were to be handwritten. Section 25, the parties agree that the broker may take action to enforce this agreement and any associated fees and costs, and the owner would agree to indemnify or pay out broker costs if this agreement had to be enforced. Section 26 is a sex offender criminal information. The owner agrees that the broker is not responsible for checking the sex offender registry. The owner has sole responsibility to do any searching research on sex offenders, death, psychological stigma, crime. The owner would have to obtain their own information, and the seller is not, or the broker is not responsible for obtaining that information. Section 27, the owner conveys all of the audio, video, and photography rights for the marketing of the property and advertising in perpetuity to the broker. 28, surveillance. The owner agrees to abide by all laws and regulations concerning surveillance, including making certain there is no surveillance in areas where privacy is expected. The owner also has the option to check whether or not that the broker can disclose potential surveillance, including signage on the property and marketing and advertising. Section 29. Section 29 indicates that this agreement can only be amended in writing. Sections 2 or 3 must be based on options available in those amended sections above. Section 30 gives a place where you could add in any other terms and conditions of the agreement. And then also there's a note here indicating that the parties who are actually signing the agreement have the ability to execute the agreement. There's place for the owners to sign with email, phone number, date and time, so contact information as well as the owner, the mailing address, the actual real estate firm's name, and who's signing on behalf of the real estate firm, so it'd be the real estate agent. And then the owner and the broker also have the ability to sign there.